Hi everyone, Comic Book Reviewer here, this time reviewing on issue 1 of Disney Villains Ursula. Now, as you know, Disney Villains is meant to have characters like Hades, Scar, Gaston, and even Magnificent, who are meant to have their own original stories. One of which is meant to have Ursula from the 1989 film The Little Mermaid. And there have been different takes of Ursula's origin, one where she's meant to be a sea witch as a play on con artists as well as scammers, and one with her obviously being King Creon's sister, and also The Little Mermaid 2, where she has a younger sister known as Morgana, who tries to emulate her and prove that she's just as good as Ursula. And yeah, the cover mainly has Ursula in her own villain-like pose, so let's get on with the story. The story starts off with an unknown sea witch saying, "Worm, is your life so worth so little? Then why would defy me, your goddess?" And of course, we're introduced to the Witch of the Southern Seas and is disappointed with her sort of tribute. And right away, she kind of takes this as a personal insult, and despite obviously the merfolks of the Temple of Antarctos, she ends up going right up to surface and calls for her own personal power attack. Right away, someone throws an unknown object right at her and says, "What's this?" And of course is the first to be taken down and ends up as a lifeless statue. And of course her sort of orb-like essence ends up disappearing, and was shown at the Temple of, obviously, Atlantica, where where folks are being used as sacrifices, and one eel saying, "Why do you weep, child? It is an honor to be typhoid to the sea witch." And we are given a glimpse to Ursula. And obviously this is the way I do see Ursula, as that sort of con artist, someone who's a bit of a scammer, seeing people who sees their wants and needs for their own personal ends to get money and so forth. And right away uses the merfolk as her own personal sort of way to kind of gain their sort of life force, and says, "Delicious." And of course goes up for the other merfolk and say, "Another typhon, another season of peace. I should really charge them all." And we also see right away Ursula senses that something's wrong, and sees right away that one of her fellow sea witches, known as Scylla, has ended up kind of ended up being axed off. And we kind of see right away the other objects of the other sea witches, and checks which one, and of course realizes that one of her fellow sisters has been defeated. And of course the sort of eel saying, "A sea witch in danger? Impossible! You are invincible." And this is like looking at how scammers or con artists and that end up kind of slipping up. It damages the operation, and other people have to figure out what just happened. And of course, this is Ursula knowing she has to answer the call. And of course, goes to the Temple of Antarctos, and we see to Ursula's shock and dismay that Scylla has been turned into a statue, and says, "My poor sister. They were starving you. No wonder you were vulnerable. But what trickery! Your magic, your beautiful magic, gone. But who did this? Who did this? Crybris is the wisest. She'll know what to do." And we see how right away Ursula goes down to the obviously the underdepths to try and talk to her fellow sister Crybris, and turns out is meant to kind of live in this giant shell, And this does remind me a bit of The Wizard of Oz, with the whole magic tricks and so forth. And Krybus saying, "What is it you want, sister? It's dangerous for you at these depths." And we do see how Ursula brings the news about what happened to their fellow sea sister. And of course, this is obviously Krybus saying, "This is not use. I heard the last breath of our sister's magic on the currents. You would do well to listen to them more closely, child. Come out of that shell, eldest sister. We must do something." "Ha! We? No, dear Ursula, you." And we kind of see right away that turns out one of the merfolks from Ursula has kind of gained a bit of power, and turns out the person is a much younger King Trident. And this is where someone who is smart and wise can expose scammers, con artists, and so forth. Knowing someone like King Trident can put a danger to their operation. And this is where obviously Krybus has to make it clear that obviously Trident needs to be stopped at all cost. And this is where obviously Ursula has to warn the other sea witches and does whatever she can to prevent any more problems, leading up to issue 2. And this is the story. I think my thoughts on issue 1, it's enjoyable, it's good, and it's doing something completely different from the other Little Mermaid media. Instead of making Ursula an independent villain, instead of her being a sort of sibling to King Trident, it makes sense there were other sea witches who were part of a big organisation, King Trident taking them out, showing that King Trident is trying to take down each head of the operation to try and stop scammers, con artists, and swindlers from hurting or manipulating other people who can be easily tricked and manipulated. It's a good story, definitely readable, and it still deserves a thumbs up. Still good, and still alright. So, Comic Book Reviewer here, signing out.